Welcome back to A1 Storyteller, the place where real stories hit harder than fiction, where heroes rise from ashes, where justice finds its voice, and where every twist and turn grips your soul and never lets go. Today's story isn't just about revenge. It's not just about fire. It's not just about a racist act caught on camera. It's about standing tall in a world that tries to tear you down. It's about a man who didn't just survive hatred, he conquered it. Imagine working your whole life to build something you're proud of, only to have it destroyed by someone who judged you at first glance. Someone who thought your skin color made you less than human. Someone who thought they could erase your dreams with a single match. But here's the truth. You can burn the bike. You can burn the garage. You can even try to burn a man's spirit, but you will never burn his soul. Today's story will take you on a journey of betrayal, rage, heartbreak, and ultimately redemption. You'll see how hatred tried to destroy, but ended up making a hero stronger. Hold tight, because this isn't just another viral story. This is a battle for dignity, a battle for respect, a battle for justice. And by the end of this story, you'll know heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they ride motorcycles. Welcome to A1 Storyteller, where the truth rides faster than lies, and where every story reminds you, no matter how dark it gets, the light always wins. Let's ride into today's powerful story. A racist Karen burned black man's motorcycle, then found out he is a state trooper. The late summer sun poured golden light over the sleepy streets of Silverwood, a quiet suburban town where manicured lawns met cul-de-sacs lined with pastel-colored houses. Kids rode bicycles up and down the sidewalks, sprinklers whirred across lush green grass, and the smell of barbecue hung in the air. It was a peaceful afternoon until the unmistakable rumble of a Harley-Davidson engine rolled down Clover Lane. Tyrone Williams, a tall and muscular black man in his mid-30s, sat astride his pride and joy. His custom-built Harley glistened in the sunlight, every inch of it speaking to the hours he'd poured into restoring and modifying it. Black matte finish, chrome trim, and a growl that turned heads. It was a work of art, and it was his sanctuary. Tyrone was a man of discipline and quiet strength. He was respected in his field, an elite officer in the State Troopers Division, known for his integrity, sharp mind, and leadership. But here in Silverwood, very few knew who he really was. He'd bought a home on the quiet end of town a year ago, drawn to the neighborhood's charm and the idea of peace after long shifts on the job. He had just finished a grueling 12-hour shift that involved chasing a stolen vehicle, calming a domestic dispute, and handling paperwork that could bury a man. All he wanted was a ride to clear his head. As he coasted into the cul-de-sac near Maple Ridge Drive, he pulled over to check his phone. Tyrone leaned his bike on its kickstand, took off his gloves, and pulled up a message from his younger sister, Tasha, asking about dinner that weekend. That's when he heard her. "Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me." A sharp, shrill voice pierced the calm. He turned slowly, squinting against the sun. There she was. Where did this Karen? Short, platinum blonde bob, yoga pants, oversized sunglasses, and a bright pink tank top with the word "blessed" scrawled across the chest. In her late 40s, Karen had the demeanor of a woman who had never once been told, and she was marching straight toward him. Karen didn't walk. She stormed, with a chihuahua barking behind her and rage in her voice. "I don't know who you think you are," she snapped, hands on hips. "But this is a family neighborhood, and we don't allow noise pollution like that motorcycle." Tyrone blinked, surprised at her hostility. "Excuse me?" he asked calmly. "You heard me. That thing is scaring my dog, upsetting my cat, and waking up my grandchild. It's against the HOA rules to bring vehicles like that into this community." Tyrone raised an eyebrow. "Mom, I don't live in your HOA. I live 5 blocks over, and I'm not violating any laws." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Yeah, I've never seen you before. That doesn't mean I don't belong here, Tyrone said evenly. She scoffed. People like you always think you can just show up wherever you want and bring your crude noise and attitude. Tyrone straightened his back slightly. He'd dealt with racism before. It wasn't new. But even after years of training and discipline, it never stopped stinging. People like me? He asked. Karen didn't blink. Yes, motorcyclist. Right, sure. Look, I'm just checking a message. I'll be on my way in a minute. But Karen wasn't interested in peace. She'd already decided she didn't like the look of him, didn't like his presence, and most of all, didn't like that she couldn't intimidate him. Take your junk heap and get out of my neighborhood before I call the cops, she snapped. You're welcome to call them, Tyrone replied. I'd be happy to talk to them. She stormed off, muttering about how this would teach him a lesson. He shook his head, got back on his bike, and slowly rode away. He had no idea what she was about to do. The next morning, Tyrone woke to the smell of smoke. Not from inside the house, but outside. He ran to the front window and froze. His motorcycle, his beautiful custom Harley, was engulfed in flames. The fire was raging. Orange tongues of destruction danced across the fuel tank, melting the paint, curling the chrome. Neighbors were already outside, calling 911, watching in horror as the blaze grew. Tyrone didn't wait. He ran outside with a fire extinguisher, trying to save what he could, but it was no use. By the time the fire department arrived, the bike was a blackened husk. He stood in silence, fists clenched, jaw tight. Then came the phone alert. A neighbor had caught it all on their security camera. He watched the footage, disbelief turning to fury. It showed Karen sneaking up the driveway with a red gas can in her hand. She poured it all over the motorcycle, struck a match, and ran. She burned his bike. She torched his pride and joy, and she smiled as she did it. Tyrone didn't call the local precinct. He called his own office. Within hours, state troopers arrived with forensic teams and warrant officers. They swept the neighborhood for evidence. Karen, still in her robe and sipping coffee on her porch, looked confused until she saw who was leading the charge. Tyrone walked up her driveway in full uniform. Her jaw dropped. Wait, you're a cop? No, ma'am, Tyrone said coldly. No, ma'am, Tyrone said coldly. I'm a state trooper, and I'm placing you under arrest for arson, property damage, and the hate crime. You can't be serious, she shrieked. I didn't mean. It was just a joke. I didn't know. Tyrone snapped the cuffs on her wrists. You knew exactly what you were doing, a ring. And then he turned her around and led her to the patrol car. The entire neighborhood watched in silence. By noon, the news had spread like wildfire. Local headlines screamed. Woman arrested for setting motorcycle on fire. Victim was off-duty state trooper. Arson in Silverwood. Racial hate crime caught on camera. The footage from the neighbor security camera went viral. Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok were flooded with the video of Karen, her face clearly visible, dousing Tyrone's motorcycle with gasoline and watching it burn. The public reaction was swift and brutal. Some people couldn't believe what they were seeing. Others, sadly, they weren't surprised at all. Hashtags started trending. #justice for Tyrone, #Karen busted, #state trooper strong. Tyrone didn't post anything. He didn't need to. The world was already speaking for him. But what the world didn't see was the emotional toll it took on him. That bike had been more than a vehicle. It was a symbol, a connection to his late father, who used to ride motorcycles, a project that got him through the darkest moments of his career. And now, all that remained was a pile of twisted metal and ash. His heart was heavy as He'd faced a lot in life: racism, pressure, trauma. But this felt different. It wasn't just an attack on property. It was personal. It was targeted. Still, he had a job to do and justice to pursue. 3 days later, Karen stood in court in an orange jumpsuit. She was pale, disheveled, her once perfect hair now a frizzy mess. Her lawyer stood beside her, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. The courtroom was packed. Tyrone sat near the front, dressed in full uniform. His calm demeanor didn't betray the storm brewing inside him. The judge, a stern woman with salt and pepper hair, read the charges. Karen Elizabeth Monroe, you are charged with second-degree arson, destruction of property exceeding $10,000, and a hate crime under State Penal Code 294A. How do you plead? Karen's voice was small. There were gasps in the courtroom. Tyrone didn't flinch. He had expected this. Denial was her only defense. The prosecutor rose and presented the video evidence. The judge's face tightened as she watched Karen light the match. A bail is denied, the judge ruled. This was a deliberate and dangerous act that endangered the lives and property of others. You will remain in custody until trial. As Karen was let out, she looked over her shoulder at Tyrone, her face twisted with resentment. But he didn't blink. He'd already won the first battle. In the weeks that followed, Tyrone found support pouring in from across the country. Letters arrived at the station from veterans, bikers, fellow officers, and strangers who had seen the story and wanted him to know he wasn't alone. A local motorcycle club started a GoFundMe to rebuild his bike. It raised over $120,000 in under a week. Custom builders reached out to offer parts, labor, and designs. But Tyrone didn't want to rebuild the same bike. He wanted to build something better. With help from his brother, Darnell, and old friends from the military police, they got to work on a new project. The garage became a sanctuary once more, a place where Tyrone could put his pain into purpose. Day by day, bolt by bolt, the new motorcycle took shape. It was sleeker, faster, stronger. And on the tank in custom silver script were 2 words, still standing. The courthouse was silent as Karen Monroe was led into the courtroom in shackles, a shadow of the smug, entitled woman who had once strutted through her neighborhood with power and privilege. Her once perfect hair was unkempt, eyes sunken with fear. She wore the look of someone who was finally realizing she was no longer in control. Outside, protesters and supporters of Tyrone had gathered, holding signs that read, "Accountability, not privilege. Justice for Tyrone. Silence is complicity." Inside, the air was tense. Every seat was taken. Cameras were barred from the courtroom, but every reporter in the county was scribbling notes, waiting to see if justice would truly be served. Karen's legal team tried every trick in the book. They argued that Karen had suffered from a momentary lapse in judgment. They claimed she had mental health struggles, exacerbated by stress. They even tried to say the fire was accidental, that she merely wanted to scare him, and didn't realize the gas would ignite that fast. But the prosecution brought in expert witnesses, bodices. They presented the gasoline can as evidence, with Karen's fingerprints clearly visible. They slowed down the security footage frame by frame, showing Karen looking over her shoulder, smiling, then lighting the match with calculated precision. Then came the witness testimony. A neighbor testified that Karen had made racially charged remarks in the past. Stories that uncover injustice, lift up the unheard, and remind the world that courage always rises, even when the world tries to burn it down. Let Tyrone's story be a lesson. When you're standing on the side of truth, even fire can't stop you. If this story hit you in the heart, don't just scroll past. Like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories that ignite change. Drop a comment and tell us what you would have done in Tyrone's shoes. Wow. Turn on that notification bell, because next week's story, it's going to blow your mind. This is A1 Storyteller, where every story matters. Until next time, stand tall, ride strong, and never be silent in the face of hate.